Disappearing into Stars, a participation campaign. Please welcome Stuart.
Glad to be here to talk about my subject in astronomy, but to talk about it as a campaign to get back into the regular research world, to not let the challenge of having some unemployment and not being allowed to finish my previous project thwart me from continuing in research. So I'm glad to get that word in. So I'm going to talk about giving speeches in about astronomy, not entirely giving. I'm not going to spend my whole time talking about my astronomy research, but to a Toastmasters audience, I think it's appropriate to explain my objective of using public speaking to accomplish my career goal of furthering this research. So for me, a lot is riding on the line of being able to give a good presentation, that I'm actually seeking sponsorship for being able to do the research and for going to a January meeting. And for that, I'd like to invite all of you to tomorrow to my talk that I've been advertising to people at the University of Utah at 7 p.m. in the Union Building, and you can ask me about that afterwards, the exact room 312. So I'm showing my passion to participate. I'm giving a practice pitch. And so I'm starting that recently there's been 1,000 planets. We passed the milestone of having 1,000 planets confirmed and validated, though actually the Kepler project has more than 1,000 planet candidates that have not been completely validated. And I'm doing my project of planets disappearing into stars is based on having so many planets. Now, having the 1,000th planet, that's not very significant, except that I've been able to do some things with 1,000 planets that 12, 15 years ago would have been impossible with less than 100 planets discovered. And so here I am, working on a telescope, and this is where actually taking the telescope mirror off. We're doing all this work, going through firing rain. Yes, this is actually a forest fire coming up the mountain on our poor little telescope. Going through a lot of challenge in order to confirm and validate some of these planets. And I've even done a previous speaking tour, a little bit. This talk tomorrow, if this sponsorship works, or maybe if it doesn't work, could do a repeat of my 2009 speaking tour, where I went and talked, where I actually drove from Los Angeles to Massachusetts in a 7,500-mile drive of speaking in many different cities, and then I added a few places in California and Hawaii afterwards. And what I wanted to do, I wanted to participate. I wanted to be a part of actually studying what the planets that we find. This is the most prolific planet discovering instrument that we've ever had, the Kepler spacecraft. And I've sought to participate in that since 1998. But before Kepler, there have been many ground-based projects, and this is how we find many of the planets from the ground. Or rather than having one telescope, this is actually 8 cameras to cover a big area of the sky. Planet finding is something where you actually can use small telescopes, but the big telescopes are important to confirm the planets. What is my project? My project is treating planets as bumper cars. We found with 1,000 planets that many solar systems are not like our own. Many solar systems, the planets actually interact. The planets are too crowded, and they're scattering each other. Now, planets have gravity and everything, so they don't actually have to collide to play bumper cars. If they get too close, they can get sent on non-circular orbits, and they can move in, they can fall in, they can be scattered. And what I found here, I pointed out that the distribution of Kepler planet candidates, that if you look here, we have the giant planets. Here we have the medium planets with the data here. The data is this dark line here, the data field. And this is 1 day period, the number of planets per star. And the simple thing about the data is that for giant planets, there's more planets around 1 day than for medium planets. This is backwards. Giant planets have more gravity, they scatter harder, they raise more tides on the star. Now see, the reason that the data fit goes like this, that you have planets that, more and more planets going out, that you have this sudden sharp drop-off close to the star, is the planets that are this close to the star, they fall in by tidal migration. And this is probably getting a little bit challenging, a little technical. You probably all heard, or some of you have heard, that the moon is actually slowly migrating out. It's going further and further away. That's because the Earth, the moon puts tides on the Earth, and the Earth rotates a lot faster than the moon goes around. So the Earth is actually putting energy into the moon's orbit, making it go up higher, and that slows down the Earth's rotation. These planets on 1 day periods, they're actually going around the star faster than the star itself is rotating. So you have the opposite situation. The orbit is fast, the rotation with the central main massive object is slow. So basically, since you have the opposite situation, you have planets moving in instead of the moon is moving out. If you don't understand that, you can just think that it's kind of like a drag. The tides on the star raised by the moon, raised by the planet, just like the moon raises tides on the Earth. Put a drag on the orbit, and the orbit's starting to fall in. So you have all these planets here are falling in. And it turns out that this slope right here is what you'd expect. And this is one thing I pointed out, been one of the first to point out, is that this slope fits. But to get back to this point, there's more giant planets, even though they raise a bigger tide. And that shouldn't be. There's too many planets. A lot of people notice that there's too many planets. They said, oh, well the energy lost to tides, this drag, it's small. They're just staying up there for a long, long time. They're staying in the orbit a long, long time. And I said, no, this is what we'd expect for the strength of the tides. So what I pointed out, being the first to point out how this is higher than this, is that they're just simply new planets going in. And so I'm cutting this talk a little shorter than my main one about how we can model this and look at the rate of future planets modeling in, falling in. And it really just works better. I won't go into the details in my 12 minutes. It really works better to say that there's more planets coming in, and that accounts for, there's more giant planets coming in. There's not so many more medium planets. And that's why there's more giant planets, because the giant planets have more gravity, they scatter more than the medium planets. And nobody's pointed this out before I have, and it's the sort of thing that people will hire me for if I just am able to take a few more months and present a few things, like here, this, let me jump to, so I make sure I have plenty of time. Well, what I'm showing here is that there's some signs that planets with less circular orbits, more eccentric orbits, they have more iron. If you separate out the stars here that have more iron compared to the stars here that have less, you'll see all these more eccentric orbits. And so I'm saying, hey, these planets really are falling in. A lot of people have said that some of the top theorists at the Kepler conference I went to said that this is something really worthwhile, but I've been forced to fight with the referee, and the referee said to look for another effect, that the less material in the star to pollute, the less material that, and we say pollute when a planet goes into a star. It's kind of a funny term. But planets are iron, they're rocky stuff. Stars burn pure hydrogen and helium. So it turns out that the stars that have the smallest layer that will pollute, it's a little complicated. It goes in the other direction than you expect. It's the bigger stars actually have a thinner and thinner layers that get more massive. So you actually can pollute a bigger star, because when you pollute a bigger star, you're polluting a smaller convection zone. You have to go back to that. So that's why the more mass of the star, the more pollution you have. Now this was seen 12 years ago by someone who also said planets are falling into the stars, but I'm showing that the effect is even stronger when you consider eccentricity. I've been doing this also. I've been doing actual stand-up comedy. This is a surprise, a little change of topic, but if I'm doing public speaking, I've actually taken, last time I did this, I had 2 different fruits, and it said hot balls of gas. That's how I do my stand-up comedies. I walk in, say hot balls of gas, I take my orange pumpkin and my red pomegranate and say, we've got these 2 balls of gas going around each other. That's all stars are hot balls of gas. Turns out these giant hot Jupiter planets, they're also hot balls of gas. Unfortunately, my niece ate my hot balls of gas. So I didn't have them very. I'm also, when I visit places, I'm taking videos of myself in places and saying, I'm participating. I'm Stuart Taylor, astronomer, and I'm in Mountain View participating. I'm in Hong Kong participating. I'm in Seattle participating when I go visit these places. And sometimes I'm trying to make it go a popular saying to say, I'm not participating, I'm Peyton. We'll see if we can turn that into a new word or not. So my conclusion, I have a dramatic astronomy project. I hope I have a passion participating, and I want to use something, I want to use public speaking and Toastmasters and advocate public speaking and writing. And I have to say that my high school math teacher was right when he shocked me. He said, writing is more important than math. Well, you know, in this world, as much as it's good to be able to do math, I've realized you've really got to do writing. And yeah, I'm begging for a little bit of support to write. And writing is important for Toastmasters because what are we doing when we speak? We're writing. And I'm finding speaking and writing goes hand in hand. And the purpose of astronomy is to encourage, to inspire, excite young people and old people like myself to education, to learn. And so that even people who haven't learned to write well can go back and learn how to write, learn how to educate yourself, and learn public speaking about science and everything we love. Thank you.